Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Olisa. I'm an associate at Olisa Agbakoba Legal, particularly at the Sports, Entertainment and Technology Department. I'll be taking us on finance, basically, for creative and entertainment industry in Nigeria. So before the slides come up, basically, we know that the primary goal of every business in Nigeria is to make profit. No matter how organized your business is, whether it's a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a company, the essential goal is to make a profit. So one essential way of increasing your profit is through growth. And how do you achieve growth? It's the need for capital, essentially the need for finance. So there's always the need for finance, except you are Dangote or Femi Otedola or Mike Adenuga that has a lot of cash to spare. Then you may say you do not need finance as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. But barring this, finance is very, very important for development and growth of a business entity. So essentially, what is I'll start by defining finance. Finance is basically the process of raising funds for business activities or investing money into your business. So historically, it has always been banks and financial institutions like insurance companies, mortgage banks, microfinance banks, essentially, that is. However, I mean, we've seen in the past and from experience that the interest rates are always high and making it unattractive for businesses to explore bank loans. So, okay, slides are up. Oh, thank you. Okay, so just like this here, financing is the process of providing funds for business activities or investing. So like I said earlier, banks and insurance companies used to be the only source of finance for people, for businesses. So finance is a way to leverage the time value of money to put future expected money flows to use of project. Essentially, what this means is that money has a time value, and you need to leverage the value of money to multiply it. You need to multiply money. You don't store money. You don't keep money. You need to keep multiplying money. So you need finance to multiply your income or your profits. So next slide, please, Stephanie. So first thing to know is that there are two broad categories of financing available to businesses. They are debt financing and equity financing. So debt financing, just as it is, debt and financing. So debt financing essentially means borrowing money or taking money from outside source, usually banks, companies, insurance companies. Essentially, it's borrowing money to finance your business, promising to pay back with an interest by a set date in the future. So debt essentially means the amount of money that needs to be repaid back, while financing means providing funds or money to be used in business activities. Another important feature of debt finance, loans, when you borrow this money, they are always secured or collateralized by assets of the company taking the loan or the business taking the loan. And really, one of the important aspects of debt financing, if you are going to be taking this option, you need to have something that you give in return for the loan. Next slide, Stephanie. No, not that. Forward, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you. You can stop there. Go back, please. Okay, so yes, thank you. Yeah. So essentially, I tagged as the 5 C's to determine credit worthiness. Before any lender give you money or will lend money to a business, there are things that must be in place. So I call it the 5 C's of credit. So number one is character. We have character, we have credit, we have capacity, we have collateral and conditions. So what does character mean? Character means what experience does your business have? What are you bringing to the table as a business owner? Your business history, what are your major achievements as a business? What are your major achievements as a business owner? Have you filed for bankruptcy in the past? Has bankruptcy charges been filed against your business in the past? So for every potential lender, these are the background check. This is one of the background checks that they do before they can lend you money. Another thing is credit. Credit worthiness is one thing that a prospective lender is going to consider before lending money to a prospective borrower. So they need to know if you are credit worthy. If you borrow money, can you multiply that money? So are you able to pay back? Can you turn 1 naira to 10 naira? Can you turn 5 naira to 100 naira? How have you handled loans in the past? Do you have a loan history? If you have a loan history, they would like to check how you cleared your loans. The next one is capacity. Will you be able to? What is your capacity to refund the money? I mean, if I'm borrowing someone money and I know this person does not have the capacity to return the money, it will be very difficult for me to lend person money. So essentially, capacity is also a key determinant for lenders. Then also collateral. Just like I said, in debt financing, collateral is very important. There must pledge your assets before you can be entitled to the loan. So what are the assets that your company has? Does the asset match the value of the money that you intend to borrow? There are also conditions that will be considered. For example, what type of industry are you fall under? What are the economic factors that may impact the viability of your business? So these are the things that lenders look at. So for everybody who we explore the option of debt financing, you need to look at these five C's of credit before you even think of borrowing money. So you need to look at your character, you need to look at your credit worthiness, you need to look at your capacity, and then you also need the assets that you have in place to secure the loan. And you also need to look at the conditions of your industry and also the economic factors that may impact the viability of your business. So for example, let's say a business borrowed money before the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. We all know that it may be very difficult for the business to pay back at the set date. So these are some of the things that you need to consider before borrowing money. So the next category of financing. Okay, let me take advantages of debt financing. So there are several advantages to financing your business through debt. So the first thing is that the lending institution has no control over how you run your company, and it has no ownership. So essentially, if I borrow money, I don't give you any right to ownership in my company. It's just a creditor and a debtor relationship. So you have no control whatsoever. I run my business. The only business the creditor may have with me is how I will repay the money. So another advantage is that once the loan is paid back, the relationship with the lender ends, which is very important for any business in Nigeria. Once you borrow money and you pay back, when you don't end totally, because I mean you may need subsequent loans, but you end that particular transaction, so that your business becomes more valuable and you are not seen as a debtor. So another option is that the monthly payment, as well as the payment, is a known expense that can be accurately included in your forecasting models. So every business needs to forecast. You need to make plans for future. So once you are breaking down payment, you already calculate it as your expense. So it forms part of your expenditure for during the pendency or during the tenure of the loan. So it allows us to plan properly. So next slide, please, Stephanie. So has its advantages. It has its own disadvantages and demerits too. So for startups, for medium and small enterprises, adding a debt to your monthly expense, assume that you may have the capital to always meet these expenses, including the debt. But for small and medium enterprises, you may not have inflows regularly that may offset your debt. So it's always very difficult sometimes it's always very difficult for small and medium enterprises, especially in the creative industry, particularly sports. Let me use sports as an example. So if I own a sports club, let's say football club owners in Nigeria, during the pendency of the COVID-19 virus, there was no footballing activity in the country, no sporting activity was allowed. And let's say you have borrowed money and you are not into business, nobody is coming to the stadiums to watch your football match, selling tickets, you're not selling merchandise. So it will be very difficult, and it's very, very difficult for you to pay back, which is very detrimental to such entrepreneurship, because once you don't fulfill your obligation to pay back, it might result into legal actions taken against you. The collateral that you've assigned to secure the loan might be taken from you. Collateral might even be the business itself, might be a very, very important asset, and the business might be taken away from you. Another disadvantage is that small business lending can be slowed substantially during recession. For example, Nigeria is in recession at the moment. For small businesses that is just trying to pick up, trying to expand, trying to grow, it may be very, very difficult to pay back loans at this period, because the country is undergoing tough and serious economic downturn, which affects every type of business generally, big companies, medium-sized companies, and small-sized companies. You can imagine if the big companies are feeling it, you can imagine how the small companies will feel it. So it's always very difficult during recession period. These are things that you may not necessarily have thought about at the beginning or when you wanted to borrow the loan. So people don't think a factor in recessions or economic downturns before they borrow money. Another thing is it may result in personal financial losses if it becomes impossible to repay the loan. So sometimes businesses, there are times when directors or even shareholders may need to repay loans with their own personal money. So, for example, if it's a partnership, if I operate a partnership with a friend and we've secured loans and we couldn't pay back, we may need to our own private and personal pocket to set debt just to save our business. If we don't want our business to crumble or crash, we may look for every means possible to get the money. It may also result in bankruptcy. So if bankruptcy is filed against a company or a company that is just trying to grow, it's very bad, very, very bad. So that's that about debt financing. So the next category is equity financing. Equity financing, as the name is the process of raising capital through the sale of shares in a company. So this type of financing does not involve borrowing money. You don't borrow money in equity financing. So what you do, the equity is another word for ownership in a company. So let's say a business owner needs to grow operations. Instead of acquiring debt, you may take the option of equity financing by selling stakes in your company. So I will give a practical example. Let's say ABC and Co. They valued their company at $1 million, and they need to finance the business. maybe they want to expand or they want to branch into that area. They need to finance. They will financing generally, and if business cannot accommodate that finance, I want to take the option of equity financing. First thing they need to do is value the company, value the assets, the liabilities of the company, so that you arrive at a particular figure. So let's say they've arrived at $1 million and they need to take equity financing by selling or selling a 10% stake in the company. So a 10% of 1 million will be $100,000. So it is very important for them, because once they do this, they get money. They get $100,000 from an investor. So companies like to opt for equity because the investor bears all the risks. If the business fails, the investor gets nothing. If the business thrives, the investor gets his the money that is attached to his equity in the business. At the same time, giving up, you should have it at the back of your mind that giving up equity is giving up some form of control in your company. So if I'm an equity investor, I have a stake in the company. So equity investors have to be consulted before any decision is made in the company, especially in difficult times. You need to seek their opinion, something that you are not used to. If we are two before and we have an equity investor, before we take any decision, we have to go back to him and tell him that this is what we intend to do. What is your say, or what is your take on it? Paraventure, he has bought. If we are three, he has the highest shareholding in the company. I mean, he has total control. He has absolute control. He will tell us this is what he wants, and we, the originators or the owners, the initial owners of the business, maybe side in terms of decision making. So, what are the advantages of equity? Next slide, please. Okay, so funding your business through, it has several advantages. So the biggest advantage is that business owners do not have to pay back the money. Unlike debt financing, where if you borrow money, you must pay back, and you secure the loan with assets or collaterals. So if the business enters bankruptcy, your investors and creditors that you need to worry about paying them. They are also owners in the company. So because of that, their money, you don't have to worry about paying them back. So for them to have taken that risk of investing in your company, they have also taken the risk of acquiring the assets and liabilities of the company. So whatever happens, they also share part of whatever happens to the company. So you don't have to make monthly payments to your investors because they've put in money. So you don't have to, once you make profits in a month, you don't have to pay back. So you plow your profits back into the company. So another advantage is that they understand that it takes time to build a business. Most investors, this is usually not the first time that they invest. So they understand the business terrain in the country, and they know that to build a business, to have a strong footing in the Nigerian economy or in the business industry in Nigeria, it takes time. And definitely, if everything is in place, diligence, you are diligent, you are compliant, you will get the money you need without the pressure of having to see your business or product thrive within a short amount of time. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are also a number of disadvantages that come with equity financing. So if you raise equity financing, like I said earlier, you give up ownership of a portion of your company. So the riskier the investment, the more of a stake the investor will want. So for example, like I said, if you give up a higher stake in your company to an investor, you may be shelved, or you may be when it comes to decision making, you may not have a say like you used to, except you have a deal or you have an agreement that partners, you take 50% of the profits indefinitely. Except that, I mean, most times investors that have a higher stake in the business usually enjoy the benefits more than the initial owners of the company. So it is always important for people who have decided to go with equity financing to always peg the stake at a minimal level, because if you don't do that, you're putting yourself at a very high risk. Also, you also have to consult with your investors before making decisions. It was just as I said earlier, every decision you make going forward, you need to consult them. Even if they have 2% stake, you need to consult them. They need to also be part of the decision making process in the company. And it's more or less like you have a boss that you're answering to. Uh, the decision to accept or go with equity financing is an important step which could impact a company's future. It should be taken after adequate consultation with professional advisors, particularly lawyers, accountants, investment bankers. You need to take adequate consultation from professional advisors. They will provide a thorough analysis of and assess the type of your business, which will help them to give you a very important decision making evaluation process. The next thing here is due diligence. Next slide, please, Stephanie. So due diligence is a formal investigation that helps confirm that a business investment or acquisition will be beneficial to the investor or buyer. So for any prospective investor, they must carry out due diligence. So there are 3 steps that they take. First is the preparation stage, where goals and priorities are set for the due diligence process. So depending on the type of investor. So there's also the investigation stage. This is the proper diligence. This is where they conduct every analysis of the company that they are investing into. They'll check your records, check your history, your background. They will also look at your prospective growth in the industry whatever industry that you are. So then the next stage is the results. So this is where they collate their findings and then they present it to the prospective investor, which will help them to decide whether to invest or not to invest. So as a business owner or as a creative, some of the things that you need to put in place for prospective investors, you need to put in place your organizational and formation documents. That is we call it certificate of incorporation, your memorandum of association and articles of association. You need to put them in place. You need to show history or evidence of business ownership or company ownership. You need to show past business deals, your contract with your customers, suppliers, vendors, clients, other parties, depending on the type of business you have. You also need to put in place your financial documents and agreements. Just like IFA 2, when she was making a presentation on tax, they will also look at your tax records, look at your annual returns with the CAC, and your financial documents essentially, and agreements that you've entered into with a third party. Also, they also look at litigation history and trends. If you are a company that is known to always have a fancy for litigation, it plays a very important role in the minds of investors. Also, your subsidiary, if you have subsidiaries, and your stock records, if it's applicable to your business. So these are things that you may need to put in place, and investors most likely will check in your business. Apart from equity financing and debt financing, I've been told I have 5 minutes. So I'll just rush through it. So there are other sources of finance. You have your personal savings, the personal savings of the business owner. This is mostly what forms the initial capital of every business. So personal savings of the owners. You can borrow money or borrowings and grants from friends and family, bank loans, crowdfunding, government grants, and business grants. So let me briefly touch on crowdfunding. I'll be very fast. So crowdfunding is is now one of the ways in which businesses source for finance, especially small and medium scale enterprises. Crowdfunding essentially is a form of financing by which small amounts of money are solicited and collected from the public through the internet. So they tell you that, oh, there's this business that will give you a ROI, and they just need 200 people to put in money. So the more the investment, the higher the growth of the business. So crowdfunding, there are essentially three types. You have the reward-based crowdfunding, where funds are contributed in return for a product or service. You have donation crowdfunding. You have the equity-based crowdfunding. So equity, you have shares in that project or company. If it is donation, you just donate money and no return. So the best essentially is always the reward-based crowdfunding and the equity-based crowdfunding. So crowdfunding also has its own benefits and risks, which is that it bridges, one of the important benefits is that it bridges the finance gap for SMEs and leads to growth and job creation. I've been told that my time is up. So lastly, before I go, for any business, before you decide on what you have to choose between debt and equity financing, which are essentially two major ways of financing your business. Companies are never totally certain or sure what their earnings will amount to in the future. So most people speculate in the next 5 years I should be able to make this amount of money. So the more uncertain the future is, the more risk is presented. So as a result, companies in stable industries with consistent cash flows make heavier use of debt than companies in risky industries or companies who are very small. So depending on your industry will also determine the type of financing option that you will go for. So ultimately, the decision between debt and equity depends on the business you have and whether the advantages outweighs the risks. So do search on the norms in your industry and what your competitors are doing. So carry out investigations on what suits your needs. And if you are considering selling equity, do so in a manner that is legal and allows you to retain control over your company. And if you are considering debt as well, you should ensure that you have an expert of both financing. So depending on, I've come to the end of my presentation, question and answer session. Thank you very much.